Hey guys, tonight we sail off on a midnight sea with waves that glimmer like dark sapphire and winds that carry whispers from far-off lands. You're standing on a dock in ancient Joppa, your sandals damp with salt water, trying to disappear into the night. The ship before you creaks like an old man stretching before a morning walk, and its ropes swing in the breeze like sleepy hammocks. You're boarding a ship to anywhere that isn't where you're supposed to go. That's right. Tonight, we're fleeing a mission straight from heaven, and spoiler alert, you probably wouldn't survive this detour. Between rogue waves, panicked sailors, and one very hungry sea creature, this is not your average bedtime sail. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city and the time down in the comments below. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand beneath a velvet sky, stars above like tiny lanterns, flickering over the Phoenician harbor of Joppa. It smells like brine, an old rope, and somewhere nearby, a fishmonger is singing a tune about pickled sardines. You're not in a hurry to say goodbye to this place. You just don't want to deal with what's ahead. The city behind you fades into torchlight and clay roofs. Ahead, a ship is waiting. It's headed for Tarshish, which is basically the furthest point on the map, opposite direction from Nineveh, where you were told to go. You clutch your bag tighter. Inside, a dried fig or two, a flask of water, and a serious case of avoidance. The sailors eye you skeptically, but they've seen worse. You climb aboard with as much nonchalance as you can muster. A quick nod, a handful of silver, and you're officially a passenger on the most ill-fated cruise since, well, ever. Now here's a fun historical fact to tuck under your pillow. Ancient Phoenician trade ships like this one were mostly powered by triangular sails and a lot of rowing. They didn't have cozy hammocks or lifeboats, and yes, their onboard bathrooms were basically non-existent. Hope you weren't expecting first class. As the ship casts off, the stars wheel above you in silence. You head below deck, down a narrow ladder that smells like mildew and tar. It's darker here, and the rocking of the ship is almost hypnotic. You find a quiet corner behind a stack of cargo, probably jars of olive oil, maybe some goat cheese, or something even smellier. Your head rests against a bale of linen. You close your eyes. Sailors murmur above. One of them sings an old lullaby in a language you don't know. It's oddly comforting. You drift. Hours pass. The wind changes. The ship groans louder. Suddenly, thunder cracks like a whip. You bolt upright. Water is sloshing over your feet. Are you dreaming? Nope. Shouts erupt on deck. Heavy boots pound across the floorboards. You climb up to see the sky split with lightning. The mast sways like a reed. Waves slap the hull with the fury of 100 angry cats. Sailors scream prayers to every god they know, some of whom haven't had a worshiper in centuries. One sailor hurls a cargo crate into the sea, yelling, "We must lighten the load!" Another grips the railing and shouts, "Who brought this curse on us?" You try to shrink back, but someone grabs your arm. "You! What's your story?" Suddenly, lots are drawn, little marked stones pulled from a pouch, a kind of ancient divine roulette. Everyone holds their breath. And of course, your stone is the odd one out. Now here's something odd and scholarly to chew on while the storm rages. Some commentators wonder if the ship's crew might have been from multiple backgrounds: Phoenician, Hebrew, maybe even Egyptian. That means when they prayed to all their gods, the deck might have sounded like a chaotic interfaith conference in the middle of a typhoon. Back to you, standing in the downpour, drenched, salty, and trying not to look guilty. "I'm a Hebrew," you mutter, "and I'm running away from the God who made the sea." The sailors collectively gasp. Not great. "We have to throw him in," someone says. You raise your hand. "Okay, Okay, let's not rush. But even you know the storm isn't stopping. The waves are growing teeth. I'll jump, you offer, heart pounding. There's a pause. Then, without ceremony, you're lifted by two burly arms and splash. The sea swallows you whole. At first, it's just bubbles and noise and cold. Then silence. A strange calm. The water folds over you like a giant quilt of darkness. And just when you think this might be the end, something enormous moves beneath you. A shadow with the shape of a nightmare. It opens its mouth. You don't even have time to scream. You are not dead. Which, honestly, is surprising. You feel weightless, floating in a dark, sloshing space that smells like, wet sardines, seawater, and something distinctly stomachy. Your limbs are curled up, like you've fallen into a giant fleshy beanbag. There's the faint echo of water dripping, like the inside of a leaky cave, and the entire place shifts with the gentle rhythm of something alive. Yep, you're inside a fish. A really big fish. Now, before you panic, because, let's face it, this is not your average travel accommodation, consider this. Some scholars think this big fish might have been a whale shark, or even a mythical sea creature known in Hebrew texts as a dag gadol, a great sea creature. Either way, it's got a stomach roomy enough for one reluctant prophet. You reach out your hand and pat the soft, pulsing walls. Ew. This is definitely not on your bucket list. Around you, the fish groans, maybe a burp, maybe a complaint. Who knows what it thinks of its new house guest? And here's a weird cultural tidbit to chew on while you sit in semi-digested seaweed. In some ancient Middle Eastern lore, sea monsters represented chaos itself. They were symbols of untamed waters and danger. So being in one? That's like camping inside the embodiment of your deepest fears. Fun, right? Now, what does one do inside a fish? You try to stretch. Nope. Still cramped? You try not to think about digestion. That's a whole other issue. You mumble a few words, half prayer, half regret. It's strange how dark places bring clarity. You remember Nineveh. You remember running, you remember the storm, and you realize something. You're alive, but not in control. Now comes the quiet part. 3 days pass. 3. Not exactly a luxury spa weekend. You don't have food, you don't have light, you don't even have a clock. But you do have time. Time to think, time to talk to God. Even if your conversations are a little muffled by kelp and whale breath. At one point, you drift into something like sleep. In your dream, you're floating on a lily-covered pond. Then a wave swallows the whole thing, and you're back here, in the warm, weird, squishy belly of fate. Some commentators wonder if the fish itself was part of the plan from the start, not just a consequence, but a provision. Like a strange, soggy hotel room where repentance gets real. After all, nothing clarifies priorities like being swallowed alive. You sigh and rest your head against a wall that kind of pulses when you lean on it. You! Again. There's a soft lurch. Something's changing. The fish is moving upward. You can feel it in your bones. A current. A pull. Maybe it's swimming toward shallower waters. Maybe it's... Oh no. The fish stops. Your stomach flips. Suddenly, you're launched forward like a salmon in reverse. You tumble through seawater, get smacked in the face with a rogue shrimp, and land with a squishy thud on the shore. Covered in slime. Eyes blurry, lungs wheezing, face full of sand. You lay there a moment, too stunned to move. Above you, seagulls cackle, like they've just watched the most dramatic exit in history. Somewhere in the distance, a camel groans. You're back on land. Congratulations. You made it through fish belly purgatory. And now you're being called again. No more running. You know what you need to do. But first, a rinse. You find a stream nearby, cold, sweet water trickling over stones. You wash the fish goo from your hair, from your hands, from the folds of your tunic. Your sandals are still soggy, but your heart feels lighter. There's a single road stretching ahead. It leads north, toward Nineveh. A desert breeze catches your robe. It smells like dust and figs. Somewhere in the distance, a shepherd sings to his flock. It's peaceful, but you can feel it in your bones. Something big is coming. You sigh, squeeze water from your hem, and begin to walk. As you head toward Nineveh, you pass through little towns, bustling marketplaces where vendors shout over baskets of garlic and barley. You see kids playing games with pebbles and sticks. You see travelers on donkeys with clay flasks strapped to their packs. The world is turning like it always has, but inside you, something's different. You are no longer a runner, you are a messenger, and you smell faintly of fish, which, you have to admit, is an odd brand of holiness. But hey, stranger things have happened. You pass a fig tree that's dropping overripe fruit onto the road. You pluck one. Sweet, sticky, perfect. And you think, if a giant fish didn't want me dead, maybe God's not finished with me yet. You travel by foot. Step after step, the road hums with heat and dust. The sun presses down like a warm hand, and your sandals, still slightly fish-scented, let's be honest, slap softly against the packed earth. There are no billboards, no road signs, no GPS whispering directions into your ear. Just sky above, land below, and a horizon that keeps moving away as you approach. You've never walked this far with so much purpose. As you move northward toward Nineveh, the landscape begins to shift. The brown hills flatten into sprawling plains dotted with thorny bushes and the occasional herd of goats. The air feels drier here, cracked with distance. You pass nomads guiding flocks, women drawing water from deep wells, and children waving palm branches not out of ceremony, but just because they like the sound. They look at you strangely, probably the fish smell. You cross paths with a group of traders moving spices westward, cardamom, cinnamon, and long strands of dried saffron bundled in cloth. Their camels snort and shift, grumbling under the weight of their fragrant cargo. One of the traders squints at you. "You're headed to Nineveh?" he asks, stroking his beard. "Bold." "Bold?" You're not sure that's the word you'd use. "Do I look bold?" you ask. He sniffs. "You smell like the sea." You thank him. It's the most accurate compliment you've gotten in days. Now let's pause here for a second. Nineveh. Oh, Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire. Think towering walls and gravestone gates, libraries filled with cuneiform tablets, and a reputation for being, well, intense. These were people known for lion hunts, war chariots, and fashioning their beards into works of art. Seriously, those curls were architectural. Some commentators believe Nineveh could have taken 3 days to walk across, which gives you an idea of the scale. And it wasn't just big. It was influential, dangerous, proud. Imagine walking into New York City wearing a burlap poncho and shouting at the stock exchange. Yeah, that's what's ahead of you. You camp under the stars that night. The sky stretches wide, speckled with soft light. You lie on your back, staring up, wondering if the fish is still swimming somewhere out there. Maybe it's bragging to the octopuses. Maybe it's moved on. Either way, it swallowed a prophet, and you're not sure who came out more changed. A jackal cries in the distance. You wrap your robe tighter and try to sleep. In the early morning, the sky pinks with promise. You rise, brush sand from your hair, and keep walking. You reach the outer regions of Assyria. The buildings here are low, sun-baked structures of mud brick with wooden lattice windows. Merchants hawk dyed cloth and roasted nuts. You hear at least 5 languages in a single hour. Akkadian, Aramaic, something you don't even recognize. This is a crossroad of empires, and you, a sun-dried messenger with fish in your past, are smack in the middle of it. A boy walks beside you for a while, barefoot, curious. He doesn't speak your tongue, but he hums. a high, soft melody. You walk in silence, lulled by his tune and the sound of goats munching on scrubby grass nearby. You finally see it. Nineveh. Massive stone walls rise in the distance, glinting pale gold under the afternoon sun. Towers punch the skyline, and gates, shaped like winged bulls, guard the city like silent sentinels. The Tigris River snakes nearby, sparkling and full, dotted with reed boats and nets left out to dry. Your mouth goes dry. Your heart thumps. This is it. You take a deep breath, straighten your back, and keep walking. Inside the city gates, everything swells. Noise, people, life. You're swallowed once again, but this time by a city, not a fish. The streets pulse with movement. Bakers shove flatbread into stone ovens. Cloth vendors unroll bolts of crimson and teal. Children chase each other around carts stacked with pomegranates. A priest burns incense in front of a statue you don't recognize. You're jostled left and right, your elbows bumped by clay jars and flax baskets. You want to be invisible, but you're also here on a mission. A rather loud one. You step into the square and pause beneath a fig tree whose leaves offer a small oasis of shade. This is where you'll begin. Funny how just a few weeks ago you were booking passage away from this place, willing to throw your calling into the sea. Now you're here, sunburned, smelly, nervous, and oddly peaceful. Sometimes obedience doesn't look brave. It just looks consistent, quiet. You let that thought settle like dust before a storm. Then you whisper to yourself, time to speak. The fig tree rustles its approval, or maybe that's just the wind. Still, it counts. Your feet take one slow step forward, then another. You're no orator, no street performer with scrolls to unroll or banners to wave. Just you, a tired voice, a stomach still unsure about dry bread, and the lingering scent of brine that no amount of Assyrian incense seems to chase away. You walk into the main thoroughfare of Nineveh. Not a podium in sight, just sun-warmed stones, bustling crowds, and a few stray dogs sniffing at market scraps. You clear your throat, which seems wildly inadequate for what's about to happen. Then you speak. Your voice isn't thunder, not fire or whirlwind, just plain, slightly hoarse, and carrying a single message. The city must turn from its ways or face ruin. The words tumble out like stones, unfancy, rough, and real. Passers-by pause, not all, but enough. A man loading barley into a cart stops to squint at you. A woman, clutching an amphora, glances over her shoulder. Somewhere, a tambourine player hits the wrong beat. The rhythm of the street shifts, slightly, subtly. You didn't expect anyone to listen. Honestly, you thought you'd get chased off with stale onions or at least a rotten fig. Instead, people lean in. Now let's talk a little about Nineveh's cultural side. The Assyrians were more than just warriors and walls. This city was full of artisans, stone carvers, astronomers, and scribes. They had libraries. Yes, actual libraries. The most famous one belonged to King Ashurbanipal, filled with thousands of clay tablets. That's right, they loved books before they were cool. It makes you wonder, maybe these people aren't as hard-hearted as you assumed. Maybe there's room for softness between the chariots and war trophies. A young man, maybe 17, sidles up beside you. His tunic's patched, his sandals worn thin. "What did you say?" he asks. You repeat it, slower this time. 40 days and Nineveh will be overturned. His eyes go wide. Overturned? Like, destroyed? You shrug. Unless something changes. He nods slowly, then runs off, presumably to tell someone older and wiser, or at least louder. You keep moving. By afternoon, you've shouted the message in every square, lane, and marketplace you can find. Your voice is tired, your tongue dry. You sit near a public fountain and splash a little water on your face. It smells faintly of iron and pomegranate rinds. A pair of old women argue nearby about how to pickle fish heads properly. You smile, feeling strangely at home. That night, you find a quiet rooftop to sleep on. Assyrian roofs were flat, often used for sleeping when the air inside the house grew stuffy. You lie on woven mats beside a few clay pots and someone's laundry line. Stars blink overhead. You hear a lute playing softly from another rooftop. You breathe in, and the city's scent reaches you. Roasted grains, lamp oil, smoke, and dust. Some commentators suggest Jonah's message wasn't just doom, but a call, a spark meant to ignite something unexpected, a whisper meant to turn hearts instead of crush them. You close your eyes thinking about that. The next morning, something shifts. You notice it first in the market. A man who argued loudly about goat prices yesterday now speaks in hushed tones. A woman who scoffed at your words now sits beside her bread stand, eyes closed in quiet prayer. Even the dogs are barking less. People have begun fasting. Children carry no morning snacks. Merchants skip their midday figs. Someone's painted ashes above their doorframe, and another man sits in sackcloth on the edge of a fountain, murmuring softly to himself. You didn't expect this. No one throws fruit. No one demands your silence. They've taken your words seriously, perhaps too seriously. You pass a group gathered beneath a large date palm. One of them, a scribe with ink-stained fingers, quotes your words back to the others. They nod gravely. A child beside him clutches her doll and whispers something into its ear. You imagine the doll whispering back, "We're turning things around, kid." In the palace, yes, even there, your message has reached the king. Though you haven't seen him yet, the word spreads like wind. The king is fasting, people say. The king is in ashes. Even his royal sandals, once polished leather stitched with gold, have been exchanged for plain cloth. It's not just symbolism, it's humility in public, and it's catching. No one is too grand or too dusty to bow their head. And there you are in the middle of it, fish, stung, sunburned, sand chafed, and weirdly important. You sit beneath an olive tree near the edge of town, watching Nineveh soften. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's powerful. And as the breeze picks up, stirring the dust and drying the sweat from your brow, you wonder, not for the first time, if this is exactly what was supposed to happen all along. Maybe the fish wasn't punishment. Maybe it was the ride that got you here. You wake before the city does. Nineveh still sleeps under its dusty canopy, roofs quiet, markets hushed. Not even a donkey braying in the distance. The stars are fading, and a light pink halo curls over the eastern horizon like a sleepy stretch. You're not sure why you're up so early. Maybe it's the rooftop breeze, or the strange stillness, or just that something feels different. You sit up, stretch, and wince slightly. Sackcloth and stone tiles don't exactly make the comfiest bed. You squint down at the street below, and you see it. Not a person, not a movement, just this stillness in the air. A charged calm like the moment right before the first drop of rain. You sense it in your chest more than you see it. The whole city is holding its breath. You climb down the ladder and wander into the alleys. In a strange way, you feel invisible. You're the guy who shouted doom, and now, no one's throwing tomatoes. Instead, people nod at you like they're nodding to the town healer or the guy who delivers water jugs. It's oddly nice. At the southern gate, a few men are stacking sacks of barley, but without their usual haggling. Even the goats seem quiet, as if they've been told to behave just this once. Then word reaches you. The king wants everyone to fast, not just people, animals too. Even the royal goats are skipping breakfast. You hear someone joke, "My ox is going to file a complaint with the camel union." You chuckle. That's joke one for the morning. So, the entire city is turning. Literally everyone. Now here's a quirky cultural fact. Assyrians were known for grand public decrees. When the king made a proclamation, it wasn't a simple scroll on a wall. Messengers ran through the streets shouting it aloud. Trumpets sometimes blared. And to make it stick, a few of the guards might mime it with dramatic gestures. Public drama, Assyrian style. You see it happening right now. One crier recites the king's decree in a square while his companion, yes really, mimes a sad goat refusing grain. It's the most unexpectedly hilarious pantomime you've ever seen, and a few kids are giggling behind a fig cart. The decree is simple. Everyone must stop, reflect, and fast. No food, no water. Sackcloth on every person, ashes on every head. Cry out to the heavens. Turn away from violence. You take a moment to just breathe. Because somehow this is actually happening. You remember what you expected when you walked into Nineveh. You expected heckling, resistance, maybe a few "who even are you" moments. You did not expect a citywide spiritual retreat. You sit on a shaded bench near a bakery that isn't baking. That's a big deal. Those guys ran ovens hotter than summer. Without their cinnamon rosemary flatbread scent filling the street, the air feels oddly clean. Some commentators have wondered whether Jonah's message was unusually short on purpose. Just a few words, no extra explanations, no "here's what you should do" advice. Just a warning and space, room for the people to choose their response. And maybe that's what gave the message power. It left space for wonder. You watch a family walk by, all five in sackcloth, even the toddler, who's dragging a little wooden lion toy behind him. The father carries a small basket of ashes and gently pats some on each head. The mother murmurs something low and steady. A prayer? A lullaby? The baby lion gets a pat of ashes too. You can't help it. You smile. Later in the day, you see something else. The king himself, stepping out from his palace. No guards, no golden cloak. Just a man in plain cloth and ashes, his face quiet, his eyes serious. He walks among his people. No grand speeches, no high perch, just presence. You follow from a distance, not stalking, just curious. He helps an old woman tie her head covering. He gives up his spot at the water trough for a younger man. He kneels beside a street performer and whispers something before the man presses a trembling hand to his own chest. It's unsettling how much this feels real. No grand show, just human turning. You sit again by the olive tree near the city edge. Same spot as before, but the city feels changed now. Quieter, deeper, like someone lifted the lid off Nineveh's heart and instead of smoke and fire, there's just breath. That night, as the moon climbs slow and fat over the rooftops, you hear not music or shouting, but murmuring. A low hum of prayers, confessions, promises. You lie on the roof again, arms behind your head, staring at the stars. Somewhere far away, a dog barks once, then silence. And for the first time in a while, you don't feel annoyed, angry, or afraid. You feel, dare you admit it, at peace. Remember that fish belly? Compared to this rooftop and the hush of a changed city, that stomach feels like a different universe. You close your eyes. You wake again on this roof, this time to the rhythm of city breath. Soft murmurs, cloth shifting, distant hooves clacking against cobblestone. But something else stirs you more than any sound. The realization that Nineveh still stands. 40 days, the message said. And now, it's day 40. You sit up slowly, sackcloth still wrapped around your shoulders like a scratchy blanket. There's a low fog rolling in from the Tigris River, cloaking the lower alleys in a thin, silvery mist. You lean over the edge of the rooftop and see a boy lighting a lamp by the bakery's archway, even though it's morning. Maybe just for comfort. It's not just him. People look nervous. There's a quiet tension in the air, like everyone's waiting for something to happen. A spark, a tremble, a thunderous voice from the clouds, and yet nothing comes. You make your way down into the street and wander. Everywhere, life tiptoes forward. A merchant quietly reopens his shutters. A woman sweeps ashes from her doorstep. A little girl fingers the edge of her sackcloth tunic and whispers something to the sky. You see people exchange uncertain glances. Did it work? Is the unspoken question bouncing between eyes. And then comes the moment. Word spreads like a sandstorm, fast, sharp, surprising. No disaster, no smoke, no fire, no cracking ground. The city still breathes, the livestock still bleats. And the sky? Still soft, still blue, like a mother's shawl. The doom hasn't come. And here's your big moment to rejoice, right? Except you don't. Not really. Instead, something prickles at you. A kind of irritation. An old grudge tugging at your sleeve. See, you wanted justice. And deep down you expected, maybe even hoped, that God would dish out exactly what Nineveh deserved. You were ready to see them flattened like a cracked vase. You had the mental popcorn prepared. But now you're watching people thank the heavens for mercy, and you're not joining them. Joke one of the day? You realize you're mad about good news. You storm out of the city, quite literally. Dust kicks up behind your feet as you stomp beyond the gate, muttering to yourself. Even a goat moves aside like, "Whoa, okay, grumpy prophet inbound." You find a small rise overlooking Nineveh and drop yourself there like a sack of olives, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. And now comes your cheeky moment with the sky. You grumble aloud, "This is exactly why I didn't want to come here. I knew you were merciful, slow to anger, abounding in kindness. I knew you'd forgive them." A few ants crawl by your sandal. You ignore them. It's funny. Some commentators suggest that Jonah's anger wasn't just about personal pride. Maybe it was a deeper struggle. A man trying to understand how divine justice and divine mercy can sit in the same tent. One wanting to see order, the other called to witness grace. That tension, it's hard to hold. And to make things worse, or maybe funnier, there's the sun. Oh, the sun. It begins to beat down like a divine tanning lamp. You squint up, not a cloud in sight, just the burning sky and your own hot-headed sulk. Now remember, you're in the Middle East. This isn't a warm summer picnic sun. This is melting the sandals off your feet sun. You scrounge around for some shade. None. Then, like the world's gentlest practical joke, a little vine grows. It's ridiculous how fast it happens. One moment there's just dust and rock, and the next this green little guy is spiraling upward like he's got somewhere important to be. Big leaves, broad shade. The kind of cover that makes you go, "Okay, fine, I'll stop whining for 5 minutes." You sit under it, and for the first time that day, you exhale. Now here's your quirky cultural fact. Ancient Mesopotamians believed vines symbolized divine favor, like the gods reaching down to pat your head with a leafy hand. Farmers would often braid vines around their doors for good luck. So yes, even in your sulk, you've got some blessed decor. The breeze picks up slightly. Your mood softens just a touch. You sip water from a small clay flask. For a second, you let yourself just be. And then, with all the comedic timing of a bedtime story gone sideways, a worm shows up. A worm, small, innocent-looking, just doing worm things. And yet, by the time morning comes, that worm has turned your vine into a limp pile of disappointment. You stay seated on that dry hill a little longer than you meant to, long enough for the shadows to shift and a beetle to crawl halfway across your sandal before you notice. Nineveh, spread out below, no longer looks like a threat. It just looks tired, like a city that's been holding its breath for too long and finally let it out. You don't stand yet. The sun's still hot, the vine's still dead, and honestly, you're still feeling the sting of divine irony. But you're thinking now, and the thoughts aren't loud or clear or poetic. They're more like slow-moving oxen pulling the heavy wagon of your feelings. Why am I angry? Why am I here? What am I missing? You pick up a small pebble and roll it between your fingers. It's smooth, probably from years of wind, maybe even older than the city itself. You wonder how many people had sat right here before you, looking down at this same skyline and asking questions of the same God. Then a memory stirs. It's of the ship. Do you remember that part? The creaky deck, the groaning hull, and your very ungraceful toss into the sea? You grin a little. Okay, maybe grimace. Because here's the real kicker. The fish that saved you? That big belly boat you never wanted? That was mercy too. That was rescue wrapped in seaweed. You're starting to notice a pattern. Every time you've run, there's been a catch. Not a punishment exactly, more like a pause. An interruption. A gentle, or very wet, reroute. And that's when it hits you. Maybe God's mercy doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like a fish belly, or a dead vine, or the sunburn of a lesson you didn't want to learn. Your stomach grumbles, interrupting your philosophizing. You forgot breakfast. Again. You pull out the last of your travel rations, a bit of dried fig, a crust of barley bread, and chew slowly. Nearby, a goat bleats like it's judging your snack choices. Now, you remember that quirky cultural fact I promised? In Assyrian custom, it was believed that gods only paid attention to the truly dramatic. Fire rituals, royal sacrifices, lavish feasts. But here you are, on a dusty hill, talking to the creator of the universe about worms and vines and shade. So yeah, big plot twist for ancient theology. You sigh again, but this time it's less dramatic. You're starting to accept the idea that your discomfort might be part of the point. You finally stand up, brushing off your robes. The city doesn't notice. It's busy living. But the sky feels a little cooler now. Or maybe you're just less bothered. You take a step forward, not toward the city, not away from it, just forward. Because that's the truth about growth. It rarely comes in lightning bolts or stone tablets. It comes in sitting still under a withered vine and realizing your anger might not be helping anyone. You whisper to yourself, okay, God, I get it. Kind of, maybe. Well, you're trying. And that's when the wind shifts again. This time, not hot and harsh, but gentle. Like a breath. Like a whisper. Like a soft pat on the shoulder that says, you don't have to have it all figured out. Some scholars wonder if the book of Jonah ends the way it does, abruptly, without a tidy conclusion. Because the story isn't really about Jonah's destination. It's about the journey. Not the fish, not the city, not even the sermon. Just the slow, hard, holy work of the heart, learning how to bend. And speaking of endings, well, yours hasn't quite arrived yet. You start walking back down the hill, sun behind you now, the horizon ahead glowing that soft golden tone that makes everything feel a little more possible. You pass a fig tree. You nod at a boy drawing something in the dirt with a stick. He waves, and you smile, despite yourself. And as you cross back into the edge of Nineveh, you hear laughter. Not wild, not loud, just life. A woman scolds her goat for chewing on a sandal. A child shrieks at a sibling, then giggles. A man sneezes loudly and everyone blesses him at once. You breathe it all in, let it settle. There's a kind of peace in realizing that forgiveness, while uncomfortable, is often the beginning of a better story. And hey, remember that dead vine? Some seeds fall without us even noticing. Maybe something's already sprouting behind you, something that'll give shade to someone else down the road. You keep walking, not entirely sure what comes next, but you're open now. To Nineveh, to grace, to growth, and maybe even to worms. You wake up the next morning to the clatter of wooden carts and the low murmur of a city still figuring itself out. Nineveh hasn't changed overnight. Its buildings are still dust-colored. Its streets still smell faintly of cumin, sweat, and animal dung. But there's a different energy in the air. Like someone has opened a window in a stuffy room. You stretch, rub the sleep from your eyes, and step into the street, barefoot on warm stone. This isn't your city. You're still a stranger here. But today, something tells you to walk among the people. You pass a fruit vendor setting up his figs in careful rows, an elderly woman sweeping the front step of a clay house with a bundle of twigs, and a group of children chasing a runaway chicken like it's a royal quest. The chicken wins, naturally. They don't notice you, or maybe they choose not to. That's fine. You're more observer than prophet today. And then, on the corner near a pottery stall, you spot something unexpected. A man, bearded and wrapped in a deep indigo robe, speaking softly to a small crowd. He's not shouting like you did. He's telling a story. About a man who tried to run, about a storm and a fish, about a city on the brink. You freeze. Wait a second. That's your story. Well, a version of it. The facts are fuzzier, the fish is much larger and apparently had fire eyes, and the man inside it sang hymns in perfect pitch for 3 days straight. You cough a little, thinking of your actual time in the fish. Less hymns, more hiccuping seaweed. Still, you feel something funny bubbling in your chest. Not anger, not pride either, just wonder. Because somehow, your messy story, the storm, the disobedience, the second chances, is already becoming a tale that brings people together, even if they get the details wildly wrong. There's a boy sitting nearby, cross-legged on the ground, holding a piece of charcoal and drawing the fish as he hears it. Its scales are exaggerated, the prophet inside it smiling like he's on vacation. You laugh under your breath. Now here's a quirky historical fact for you. Ancient Near Eastern cities like Nineveh often employed professional storytellers to keep histories and myths alive in marketplaces and public squares. These tellers could spin a tale so rich, people would return just to hear the same one again, even if they knew every twist. So maybe this is just the start of another one. You buy a small flatbread from a vendor, a little burnt, but it crunches nicely. You wander toward the city gate again just to see how it feels. Outside the walls, the landscape stretches wide. Farmland ripples in the distance, dotted with sheep, olive trees, and a few travelers on donkeys who seem way too confident about their map-reading skills. You sit again. Not in protest this time, just to think. This morning, the sun feels less like a punishment and more like a reminder. Light touches your skin gently, warming instead of scolding. You begin to wonder what it means to live after the miracle, not during the chaos of storms and fish bellies, not in the intensity of a prophecy or a sermon, but in the quiet after. Some commentators wonder if Jonah's real transformation didn't happen in the fish, or even in Nineveh, but here in this unscripted aftermath, when no one's watching, when the drama is done and you're just left with yourself, your sandals, and the long road home. You lean back on your elbows and look up. The sky is deep blue. A hawk drifts lazily across it. And suddenly, you feel something. It's not a thunderous voice or a vision, just a quiet, internal tug. A gentle call to return, not just physically, but in spirit, to go back to your people, to walk a little softer, to maybe retell your story with less grumbling and more gratitude. You pick a nearby weed and twirl it between your fingers, thinking again of the vine. It died quickly, yes, but it grew quickly too. Maybe there's a lesson in that. Maybe grace doesn't need to last forever to still be real. A child walks by and offers you a fig. You accept it, surprised. It's fresh, sweet, sticky. She runs off before you can thank her. You sit with the taste in your mouth for a long while, letting it remind you that sweetness, like mercy, sometimes shows up uninvited. And so, under that big Assyrian sky, you start to imagine your return. Not as the same man who boarded the ship, not even as the one who sat bitterly under the shriveled vine, but as someone who's learning. Slowly, unevenly, still occasionally grouchy, but open to grace, to people, even to fish. You dust off your robes, adjust your now sun-faded headscarf, and smile as you stand. Because you're beginning to realize your journey wasn't about changing Nineveh. It was about changing you. You don't announce your departure from Nineveh. No parade, no farewell feast, no awkward speeches with fish metaphors. Just a quiet step outside the gate at dawn. The hem of your robe skimming the dusty path, sandals creaking softly like an old friend murmuring goodbye. Behind you, the city stretches and yawns into a new day. Someone's already banging pots together, calling children to breakfast. Somewhere, a goat is objecting to being milked. The world goes on. Ahead of you, open land, long shadows, and the gentle curve of a road that disappears behind a golden hill. You walk, and as you do, you start to hum. Not a hymn, just a tune that bubbles up, warm and tuneless and free. The kind of hum that happens when your mind finally unclenches. A breeze nudges your shoulder like it's in on the secret. This part of the story belongs to you now. Half a day in, you stop by a well. The water is cool, sweet, and somehow tastes a little like eucalyptus. You can't decide if it's refreshing or medicinal. Either way, it works. As you rest under a cluster of trees, short, scrappy little things that look like they've had to fight for every inch of soil, you catch sight of something carved faintly into the bark. A spiral. Maybe a traveler's symbol, maybe just some kid doodling in the past. Either way, it feels like a whisper that says, you're not the only one who's walked this way. And here's a quirky cultural fact. Ancient travelers in Mesopotamia often marked trees, rocks, or ruins with symbols to guide others, or to leave behind a story of their own, kind of like the ancient version of a social media post, but with more dust and less drama. You find that oddly comforting. Evening begins to stretch itself across the sky. The clouds turn bruised purple and honey orange, curling like sleepy scrolls across the horizon. You build a tiny fire from twigs and dried grass. It sputters at first, then catches. The crackle sounds like someone gently tearing parchment. You eat the rest of your bread from Nineveh, now a bit stale but still edible. The fire makes it feel warmer than it really is. A fig or two from your small cloth pouch rounds out the meal. Then, as the fire settles into soft glowing embers, you lie back against your travel pack and stare up. The stars begin to appear. First just one, bold and bright, hanging over you like a royal earring in the ear of the night. Then another, then dozens, and eventually thousands. You remember counting stars once, long ago, back when you were younger and everything felt endless. You try now, 1, 2, 12, 40. But somewhere around 73 you lose count because a shooting star streaks across the sky and steals your breath. Some commentators wonder whether Jonah ever fully understood the grace he'd been given, that maybe he was still wrestling with it long after Nineveh, still counting stars, still unsure if he deserved a second chance, or if others did. Maybe you are too. But tonight, under this velvet dome of light, those questions don't feel heavy. They just feel honest. Your thoughts start to slow, like sand trickling through a tight-necked jar. You think of the boat again, the creak of the boards, the sharp salt air, the terrified eyes of the sailors. You think of the little boy sketching you in the fish. What version of your story will survive, you wonder? Which version deserves to? You yawn and roll to your side. Tomorrow, the road will keep winding. You'll pass shepherds and wells and other stories that belong to someone else. But tonight, you rest. You breathe in dust and firewood and starlight. And you finally let go of trying to be the hero of your own story. You're just a piece of it, and that's more than enough. A jackal howls somewhere in the distance, but it's too far off to worry you. Besides, you're a prophet. Sort of. You've slept in worse places. Your eyes flutter closed. And somewhere far behind you, in a city that once stood on the edge of judgment, someone starts telling the tale again. About a man, and a fish, and a god who gives second chances. Morning greets you like a sleepy friend with a too bright smile. The sun rises slow and syrupy over the hills, and you crack one eye open just in time to catch a bird mid-flutter as it lands near your cold fire pit. It hops once, twice, then pecks curiously at the charred wood, as if checking to see if any breadcrumbs were left for it. You apologize to the bird, aloud, for your lack of generosity, and it flaps off, deeply unimpressed. You stretch, joints creaking like worn-out tent ropes, and brush the dust from your tunic. Still stained from salt water, still sand-rubbed from your fishy ride. But hey, you've had worse mornings. At least you didn't wake up in a digestive system today. You sling your pack over your shoulder and start walking. The road hums beneath your feet with that peculiar quiet of early hours, before the world remembers it's supposed to be busy. Today's landscape is open, wind-shaped, and littered with stubby shrubs that look like they gave up trying to grow taller centuries ago. Occasionally, a lone figure passes, merchants heading east with camels loaded like sleepy ships, or shepherd boys carrying sticks too big for their small hands. You nod at them. They nod back. No one speaks. It's the universal language of travelers. You're going somewhere. So am I. That's enough. By midday, you come across a village, not big enough for a name, but lively enough for a well-worn path leading in. You follow it, mostly because your water pouch is embarrassingly empty and your feet are starting to sound like someone walking on parchment. Inside the village, everything is the color of baked bread. Honeyed walls, cinnamon dust, ochre rooftops. A dog dozes in the sun, one eye open like it's been burned before by prophets or other suspicious strangers. You find the well at the center. A group of women are there, chatting in that effortless rhythm of people who've known each other forever. Their bangles jingle, their scarves ripple in the breeze, and their laughter sounds like spoons in a clay bowl. You wait your turn quietly. One of them, older with laugh lines so deep they could probably hold water, hands you the bucket without a word. As you drink, she studies your face. You're not from here, she says. It's not a question. You smile. No one ever is. She cackles at that like it's the best punchline she's heard all week. Here's a quirky cultural note. In many ancient Near Eastern towns, wells weren't just for water, they were social hubs. Deals were struck here, marriages arranged, gossip traded like coins. If you wanted to understand a village, the well was your best bet. You sit for a moment, sipping and listening. Nothing urgent, just the tapestry of ordinary lives. One woman is worried her chickens are cursed. Another swears she saw a lion, though everyone else is convinced it was just a particularly bold goat. You offer no commentary. It's not your village, not your chickens, not your goat-lion mystery. But still, you're welcome to rest in the shade of a sycamore tree just off the well plaza. Someone even hands you a fig. Yes, another fig. These seem to be your thing now. As you bite into it, syrupy and soft, your mind drifts again to Nineveh. Do you wonder how they're doing without you? Not really. Okay, maybe a little. Some commentators suggest Jonah's journey didn't end with the fish or the vine, that his real transformation came after the story ends, in the quiet, in the walking, in the long in-between. That's where the deep heart work happens. You look at your fig, half-eaten, and think, maybe. Later, a boy approaches you, wide-eyed, dirt-streaked, and clutching a tiny wooden carving of a boat. He asks, shyly, if you're a sailor. You laugh and tell him, I was, once, but I got fired. The boy looks confused, but nods solemnly like he understands the weight of adult politics. You show him how to balance the boat on a flat rock in the fountain and let the water spin it. He squeals in delight. His mother, watching from a doorway, mouths a thank you, and just like that, your presence here becomes part of their story. A strange man with sea salt eyes and a fishy smell, who knew how to make a boat dance in the water. As twilight settles, you rise, refill your water pouch, and give the fig tree a grateful pat. You don't say goodbye. This isn't that kind of place. Just a nod, a step, and the road welcomes you back. The stars begin to blink awake again. But this night feels different. Warmer. Less like a cosmic cathedral and more like a friendly ceiling. You pitch your tiny blanket between two stones, not far from a dune that hums when the wind runs across it. As you lie there, you think not of what you escaped, but what you've learned. That you can change, that people can too. And maybe that's enough for tonight. You wake to the soft crackle of wind across sand, like parchment being turned by a gentle hand. The morning is a painting of pale golds and early blues. You sit up, stretch, and dust off bits of grit clinging to your elbows. Your blanket is half buried again. Either the wind is sneaky, or you're a very restless sleeper. Probably both. You pack up your things with quiet movements. The village is a silhouette behind you now. Just a few clay rooftops and one very committed rooster whose crow carries impressively far. You smile and step back onto the dusty trail, feet finding their rhythm with the confidence of someone who no longer needs a map. The road curves, hills roll, and before long, the skyline begins to change. You start seeing signs, literal ones, carved into rocks and painted on wooden posts. Scribbles of symbols you don't fully understand, but you get the gist. Nineveh is near. Closer than you thought. Closer than you feel ready for. You don't slow down, but you do sigh a bit louder. Let's pause here for a quirky cultural fact. Ancient Nineveh wasn't just any city, it was one of the largest in the world during Jonah's time. Its walls were so wide that, according to some ancient descriptions, 3 chariots could ride side by side along the top. That's basically the expressway of the Bronze Age. Also, archaeologists believe the city had enormous parks, canals, and even a library. Yes, a library. So, if you imagined Nineveh as a dusty heap of tents and sheep, surprise, it was more like a Mesopotamian metropolis. And now, here you are, standing just beyond the gates. They tower above you, decorated with lions and winged creatures carved from stone. The guards eye you with the disinterest of men who've seen stranger things. One of them yawns. Another scratches under his helmet. You nod. They nod back. No one stops you, because sometimes the universe just waves you through. Inside, the city is loud. Vendors shout. Children dash between donkeys. A man plays a reed flute that sounds like a goose caught in a funnel. And somewhere nearby, a woman is yelling at her husband for forgetting the lentils again. You keep walking. Every corner has its own flavor. Fishy, spicy, smoky, sweet. Someone offers you a honey cake. You decline, but thank them with a smile. Another person tries to sell you a pair of sandals with extra arch support. You're tempted. You make your way toward the main square where announcements are shouted from atop a platform shaped like a very large mushroom. Probably wasn't meant to look like that. Just a poor architectural choice. And here's where it happens. You step onto the platform, heart pounding like a war drum wrapped in fig leaves. You shout. It's not elegant. It's not poetic. In fact, you kind of lose your voice halfway through the first sentence. But still, you shout. You tell them that things need to change, that this city, massive and proud and loud, needs to turn back to something deeper, that their actions have ripple effects bigger than their walls, that mercy isn't weakness, and compassion isn't a luxury. And then, you wait, for laughs, for jeers, for flying vegetables. But what you get is silence. One woman gasps. A child tugs his father's sleeve. A scribe lowers his stylus mid-word. You look around and realize they're listening. And now for a scholarly curiosity. Some commentators wonder if the people of Nineveh were already on edge, maybe dealing with omens or natural disasters, making them especially receptive to Jonah's message. Sort of like when you're already nervous and someone whispers "boo" and suddenly you're halfway across the room. Whatever the reason, your words land and ripple. The crowd begins to murmur. A man drops to his knees. Another tears his outer robe, not out of fashion distress, but as a sign of humility. You've started something. And as the buzz spreads through the streets like wind in a wheat field, you step down from the platform with shaky legs. You find a shady wall and lean on it. A goat sniffs your ankle and walks away, unimpressed. Again with the unimpressed animals. You exhale deeply. You did it. You finally did what you were supposed to. And the strange thing is, you're not filled with triumph or relief. You're just quiet, like the calm after a sandstorm. The marketplace spins on without you. Children start shouting your words in mock imitation, laughing and running between stalls. One of them tries to mimic your hand gestures, but ends up slapping his own face. You smile. You step away, not toward a crowd, but into a quieter alley. One lined with stacked baskets and closed shutters, where the sun slices through wooden beams and golden slats. You lean your back against the wall and close your eyes. You remember the fish belly. You remember the fig tree. You remember the silence of the open road. And now, the hush after the shouting. You wake to the sound of birds arguing over crumbs, somewhere above you, on the tiled roof of a Ninevite bakery. Their wings flutter like soft drum rolls, and their squabbling brings a strange sense of comfort. Life, as always, continues. Your back is a little stiff from leaning against a stone wall all night. Not your finest lodging decision. You stretch, yawn, and blink up at the new day, which smells like fresh bread and damp clay. Word is spread. Even before your sandals scuff the market road, you notice it. The usual shouting vendors? They're quieter. People walk in thoughtful clusters. One old man is literally sitting cross-legged in a pile of ashes, humming softly. You pass a goat wearing what appears to be sackcloth. It sneezes. Something's happening. You round a corner and find a long procession of citizens, heads bowed, robes torn, eyes glassy with wonder or worry. It's hard to say which. At the front, a city scribe is reading something aloud, voice trembling slightly. And so we humble ourselves, from the tallest noble to the smallest child. You stand at the edge of the crowd, heart knocking a steady beat in your chest. A royal chariot rumbles in from the palace gate. It's pulled by two sleepy-looking horses and flanked by guards with polished helmets. The crowd parts as it slows to a stop, and from inside steps someone you weren't expecting. The king. Well, maybe not the king, but certainly a very kingly person based on the gold-threaded robe and fancy leather sandals. They have tiny lions stitched on the straps. Subtle. He surveys the people, the ashes, the fasting goats. And finally, you. He says nothing at first, just walks toward you. Slow and steady, with the weight of someone who knows every eye is watching. Then, in a voice low but clear enough to travel the whole plaza, he says, "We have heard, and we are listening." Your breath catches, not just because of what he says, but because of how he says it. Not with defensiveness or skepticism or arrogance, but with sincerity. Here's a fun cultural footnote. Some Mesopotamian rulers were known to publicly participate in mourning rituals, ripping royal garments, sitting in ashes, even skipping meals, when disaster loomed or the gods seemed displeased. The idea was that leadership meant humility, not just power. A rare concept, but not unheard of. And this king? He follows that tradition to the letter. Right there in front of everyone, he drops to his knees. Then, slowly, carefully, he takes off those lion sandals and sets them aside. He scoops up a handful of ashes and presses them gently to his forehead. You don't speak. You don't need to. The message has spread far beyond your words now. Some commentators wonder if Jonah expected this. If he thought the Ninevites were too proud, too far gone, too big to change. After all, it's easy to think cities don't listen. But people? People surprise you. And today, they have. You walk quietly through the square, stepping over ribbons of ash, dodging slow-moving goats and passing people kneeling in doorways. Even the baker from this morning is handing out bread without taking payment, just nodding and whispering blessings. Around midday, the city bells sound. Not for war, not for taxes, but for silence. Everyone stops. Even the birds fall still. You sit on a sun-warmed bench near a dried-up fountain and close your eyes. This isn't the ending you imagined. You thought there'd be thunder, maybe fireworks, a dramatic storm, a temple collapse, or a divine megaphone. Instead, there's just stillness. And isn't that sometimes louder than thunder? You tilt your head back and watch a cloud drift past, slow and round like a sheep who took a wrong turn into the sky. Then, quietly, the voice returns. Not from the sky, not in a whirlwind, but from somewhere inside your chest, as if your heart is wearing a whisper. Jonah, it says. You look around, but there's no one beside you. Just that gentle voice again. They've heard. I have seen. I will not destroy them. You pause. Wait, what? The people of Nineveh will live. The city will remain. All this change, all this turning of hearts, it worked. And suddenly, you're mad? You blink, confused. You thought you'd feel proud, relieved, victorious. Instead, you feel a knot forming in your gut. It's like you wanted the story to end differently, like you climbed the whole mountain only to find the view wasn't what you pictured. You mumble, but I thought they deserved punishment. The silence doesn't argue. It doesn't need to. You get up, dust off your knees, and begin walking, away from the square, away from the celebration, away from the city that just bent its knees and lifted its eyes. You find a hill outside the walls and sit there, arms crossed, forehead furrowed. This isn't how it was supposed to go. In the distance, the golden domes of Nineveh glow like coins catching afternoon light. The people are praying, singing, sharing. And you? You're sulking. Which, to be fair, is very human of you. And that's our scholarly curiosity for the section. Some scholars suggest Jonah's frustration wasn't just about pride, but about fairness. He didn't want mercy for his enemies. He wanted justice. He didn't yet realize mercy is justice, just from a wider angle. You rest your chin on your knees and grumble, I knew you'd do this. But the sky above you says nothing, just hangs there, deep blue, full of breeze and time and the soft laughter of a forgiving world. The sea's rhythm has shifted again, gentler now, like a lullaby sung by the waves themselves. You find yourself resting in the quiet calm after the storm, the ship rocking softly beneath your feet as you watch the horizon stretch endlessly before you. The sky, painted in dusky purples and fading golds, feels like a vast tapestry woven with whispered promises of safety. Below deck, the sailors' faces are calm, their chatter reduced to murmurs, as if the storm has settled not just outside, but inside their hearts too. You remember how tense they were moments ago, gripping ropes and staring anxiously at the dark clouds, and you smile softly. Sometimes, even the bravest need a moment to breathe. Out here, in the open air, you sense the vastness of the sea and sky, a reminder of how small we all are in the grand dance of nature. Yet, within this vastness, there's a strange comfort, a soothing pulse that matches your own steady breath. Here's a curious little fact. Ancient sailors believed the stars were guides sent by the gods to watch over them during their voyages, their gentle light a silent promise that, no matter the storm, a safe harbor awaited. Imagine those tiny points of light, flickering like quiet lanterns in the night sky, leading the way through uncertain waters. Some commentators wonder if Jonah's journey wasn't just about running from duty, but also about learning to listen. To the whispers of nature, to the call within, and to the gentle voice of hope. It's a lesson in patience and surrender, wrapped in the stillness between storms. So you lean back, letting the cool breeze brush against your skin, and breathe in the salt-tinged air. The world feels hushed, waiting, like a story paused on the softest page. Remember that feeling of being cradled by the sea? Like the ship itself is a lullaby on water, singing you toward rest and peace. The sun creeps higher, gilding the rooftops of Nineveh in amber and firelight. Below, the city stirs like a waking giant, no longer angry or reckless, but quiet, humbled, curious. You remain on your hilltop perch, watching it all unfold. The broken stems of your leafy friend crunch under your heel as you rise. You stretch, arch your back, and rub your neck where the sun's kissed it a bit too thoroughly. There's no more shade, no more dramatic speeches, just you, the wind, and a question that refuses to leave. What will you do now? You descend. The slope is dusty and steep, and once or twice you slip. Nothing dangerous, just enough to make you mumble, "Seriously?" into the morning air. A few lizards scatter from your footsteps. They're fast, probably judging your sandals. By the time you reach the city gate, sweat clings to your ribs and your clothes feel heavy. Your indigo tunic is streaked with trail dust. You look like a man who's had a conversation with a plant and lost. But the guards recognize you, those same towering fellows from before, now considerably less towery. One of them bows just a little. "We were hoping you'd come back," he says. You blink. "Really?" He nods. "There's a child asking about the sea monster." You sigh. It wasn't a sea monster. He thinks it had 12 eyes? You smile. Well, he's wrong. It had 8. You follow the guard through the winding streets. The scent of baking bread mingles with something floral. Jasmine, maybe. Or crushed figs. The air is no longer heavy with fear, but with yeast and hope. People wave at you, tentatively, kindly. And that's when it happens, the moment that shifts everything. A woman steps forward, linen headscarf, russet robe, arms freckled from years under sun and sky. She holds a loaf of bread wrapped in cloth and offers it to you without a word. You take it. It's still warm. Scholarly curiosity for this scene. Some historians believe the repentance in Nineveh, as described, reflects a rare instance of collective civic transformation in ancient texts. Not just an individual change of heart, but a systemic, shared turning. It's radical. And rare. She smiles and returns to her market stall. You break off a piece of bread and nibble as you walk. It's simple. Earthy. Possibly the best thing you've tasted since you got puked onto dry land by an aquatic Airbnb. Children dart through the alleys like sparrows, trailing streamers of linen, shouting with that unmistakable childhood confidence that all adults are at least part wizard. You find the boy who asked about the sea creature. He's maybe 5, missing a sandal, holding a small carved fish on a string. "Did it smell bad inside the monster?" he asks. "Like wet socks," you reply, "and onion soup." He giggles and runs off. You keep moving. The city has changed, but not completely. There are still arguments at the market stalls, still dogs chasing chickens, still someone knocking over a basket of dates and blaming their cousin. It's still a city, messy, loud, beautiful in its imperfection. But now, there's space for grace. You find yourself near the riverbank, where reeds sway lazily and the water whispers along the stone. You sit again, not to sulk this time, just to be. A heron wades nearby, long legs like stilts moving with careful precision. You watch its beak dip, flick, catch. A few feet away, someone sits beside you. You don't turn immediately because you already sense it's not a someone you'd recognize. "Better day today?" comes the voice. You smile. "Less wormy." A pause. "That city's not perfect." You nod. "Neither am I." "They'll mess up again." "I probably will too." And yet, you glance over. No one's there. Just the breeze and the reeds and the heron, now cleaning one wing with slow, meditative patience. And you realize that maybe the lesson wasn't just for Nineveh. Maybe it was for you. Maybe it was always for you. You lean back, arms behind your head, watching clouds gather like sheep in the sky. You wonder how long the peace will last, not just out there, but inside you. But for the first time in a long time, you don't worry about it. You just breathe. And it feels like the first honest breath in days. Quirky historical note before we drift toward our final chapters. In ancient Akkadian texts, there's a term, teshubtu, that means both repentance and returning to a rightful path. It was used not only for humans, but for cities, institutions, even kings. It's a reminder that redemption is often communal, a shared reorientation. Nineveh isn't saved because one person changed. It's saved because everyone turned, together. You feel that truth settle somewhere deep between your ribs, and you smile. Not because everything's fixed, but because something began. And beginnings are worth celebrating. Later that afternoon, you sit beneath a woven awning outside a quiet shop, sipping something cool and honeyed from a carved clay cup. A small breeze lifts the corner of your tunic, and for once the sun seems to be showing a little mercy. The shopkeeper, a stooped man with a shock of wild white hair and fingers permanently stained with ink, nods toward you. "You're the prophet, aren't you?" You pause with the cup at your lips. "Depends." "Is that a good thing here?" He laughs. "Depends who you ask." There's a twinkle in his eye as he sets a scroll down gently beside your seat. "Some of us write things down," he says, "because we're afraid we'll forget. Others write things down to remember who they are." You glance at the scroll. It's unlabeled, still curling at the edges. "You want me to write it?" you ask. He shrugs. "Only if you think the story matters." And so, you pick up the reed pen, still damp with fresh brown ink. It smells faintly of pomegranate bark. The parchment is soft under your fingers, and you write, slowly, thoughtfully. You don't start with the fish. You start with the storm, and in the quiet rhythm of writing, you remember more than you thought you could. The panic on the ship, the sea's fury, the fear in the sailor's eyes, the moment of surrender, the plunge, the weightlessness, the darkness. You write about the belly, the press of slime and bone, the groaning walls of the creature, the realization that sometimes the worst place can also be the turning point. You pause, dip your pen again. Write about Nineveh, the grand buildings and crooked alleys, the cry of repentance, the startling softness of a king in sackcloth. The scroll slowly fills, ink like memory flows. Scholarly curiosity. Some commentators suggest that the Book of Jonah is structured like a parable, not primarily a historical record, but a sacred teaching tool. The symmetry of its chapters, the vivid metaphors, the reversal of expectations, they all hint that Jonah's story may be meant as much for inner transformation as outer retelling. Outside, someone is playing a reed flute. It's a drifting, lilting melody, occasionally off-key, but charming in its honesty. The shopkeeper returns with a plate of figs and cheese, sets it quietly beside you. "You know," he says, You're not the first reluctant prophet. You arch an eyebrow. Oh? He leans on the doorway, wiping his hands on his apron. Moses? Jeremiah? Elijah? All of them had their moments. Prophets are rarely volunteers. You chew on a fig, seeds crunching slightly. Maybe it's not supposed to be easy. Or maybe it's not supposed to be about you. You look down at the scroll. The pen hovers. You write one more line, something small, something personal, a whisper to the reader. He cared for the plant. It's not the most theologically profound thing you've written, but it's honest. Because for all the storms and miracles, that little green vine, the one that gave you shade, then died, taught you something. Something gentle. You finish the scroll. Roll it carefully. Hand it back to the shopkeeper. He places it on a shelf beside others, some cracked with age, some still scented with drying ink. You rise. Your legs are stiff, your back complains, but your heart feels, well, not light exactly, but untangled, like the knots have been loosened a bit. You walk slowly through the bazaar. The city is still alive, still flawed, still noisy. A child tugs at your sleeve and offers you a piece of roasted date candy, sticky and warm. You take it. Your sandals scuff against the cobbles as you make your way to the northern gate. Outside, the hills await. You've no real plan, no destination. But that's okay. You've learned that sometimes obedience doesn't come with a roadmap, just one step at a time. Oh, and that plant you loved? You pass a patch of similar vines growing beside a well, green, tangled, sun-drenched. You smile and whisper, "Nice try," into the breeze, just in case someone's listening. Quirky cultural fact for tonight's walk. In ancient Mesopotamian agriculture, castor plants, possibly the model for Jonah's vine, were prized not only for their shade, but for the oil extracted from their seeds, used in lamps, ointments, and even spiritual rituals. They grew fast, and they died fast, fleeting, but not meaningless. You hum as you walk. The flute song echoes behind you. And ahead? Just open path and sky. You don't know what comes next, but you're okay with that. The dust clings to your sandals as you leave the city behind. Nineveh's walls shrink with each step until they're no more than jagged silhouettes against the sky. The plains stretch wide in every direction, and for a moment, there's no sound but the crunch of dry grass and the quiet groan of your knees. You pause at a hilltop. It's not the same one with the vine, but it's close, familiar enough. You sit and breathe. In the far distance, farmers are working the fields, tiny figures in russet and teal, their bronze tools glinting in the low sun. Oxen plod, birds scavenge. A child chases a goat. The world spins quietly, indifferent to your drama. You lean back on your elbows and look up. The sky is awash in lavender and amber. Clouds drift like lazy thoughts. A hawk circles high. You think about the fish again, the way its insides pressed on your ribs, the rhythmic pulse of its great heart. The moment you realized you hadn't been swallowed as punishment, but preserved. Scholarly curiosity. Some scholars have pointed out the linguistic connections between Jonah's time in the belly and the language of the Psalms. It's almost like a descent into Sheol, the shadowy place of the dead. Only in Jonah's case, he returns. A poetic resurrection. You chuckle softly. You, resurrected. You, the worst missionary in history. You, who sulked over a dead plant more than the salvation of an entire city. You, still learning. A grasshopper lands on your knee, eyes bulbous and curious. It flicks its legs and hops off before you can swat it. You wonder if bugs get second chances too. The sun begins to slide behind the hills. The shadows grow long, like stretching cats. A breeze rustles through the shrubs. You lie back fully now, arms crossed behind your head, and stare upward. Stars begin to pierce the purple. You try to count them. You fail, but it feels good to try. You think back to that king, the one who wore sackcloth over royal silk. You never expected him to listen, but he did, and the people followed. It still baffles you. Quirky cultural fact, ancient Assyrian kings were known for their brutal conquest carvings, images of lion hunts, prisoners, and power. And yet, here in the story of Jonah, that same type of king humbles himself completely. Some historians have debated whether this was a unique one-time repentance or a symbolic storytelling moment to contrast divine mercy with human pride. Either way, it happened. In your story, it did. You roll onto your side, watching the horizon fade. The stars begin to shimmer more boldly now, like someone gently pressing pinholes in the fabric of a night. You whisper something, but you're not sure what. A prayer? A poem? Just a breath with meaning. And you feel it. The weight lift. Just a little. The past isn't erased. But it's quiet now, like a tale that's been told enough times to become soft around the edges. A dog barks in the valley below. Someone laughs. The world hasn't changed. But you have. In a bag at your side, you still carry a piece of parchment. Blank. Just in case there's another chapter. Just in case you decide to write something again. You consider it for a moment. Then let it be. Not tonight. Tonight, you'll watch the stars. Tonight, you'll rest in knowing that the storm ended. The fish spat you out, the people listened. And the vine, yes, even the vine, taught you something you couldn't have learned any other way. You smile, eyes half-lidded. The stars swirl gently above. You blink slower and slower. The wind brushes your cheek. A quiet God, still present. And you, a tired prophet, finally still. You wake with dew on your skin and the edge of a beetle crawling up your sleeve. The sky is streaked with early dawn, blue dissolving into gold like ink dropped in water. You stretch, stiff but calm. The peace of the stars has settled into your bones like warmth after a long illness. Today feels different. Not in a dramatic way, just quieter. You brush the dirt from your tunic, shake the sleep from your limbs, and begin walking. There's no destination, really, just the motion. Each footstep feels like punctuation, a soft, steady rhythm that matches the hum of early morning. Birds call from acacia trees. Somewhere in the tall grass, crickets hold a final pre-dawn concert. You pass a broken cartwheel, half buried in the dust. Someone must have had a rough day long before yours. Eventually, you reach a small spring. It bubbles lazily out of the rocks, shaded by palms and wild figs. You kneel, cup your hands, and drink. The water is shockingly cold, and you gasp, grinning through the shiver. You rinse your face, and for a brief second your reflection stares back, older than you remember. Wetter, yes, but also wiser. You're not sure, at least cleaner. You sit beside the spring, toes dangling into the pool. A pair of shepherds pass by, calling to each other in a language thick with vowels. One wears a sash of saffron, the other russet. Their goats bleat in disapproval of the rocky path. They don't notice you. Or maybe they do, but they simply nod and keep walking, because in this part of the world, strangers resting by water are as common as sunrises. You wonder if they've heard your story. Probably not. You're just another wanderer after all. But perhaps they've seen the king in sackcloth, or noticed the change in Nineveh. A field of barley rolls in the wind behind you, silver and green like waves. You lie back on the grass, arms folded under your head again. The fish seems far away now. So does the storm. And yet, so does your fear. Quirky cultural fact. In ancient Mesopotamian cities like Nineveh, it was common to host traveling prophets or magicians with food and shelter, often in exchange for blessings or forecasts. But you didn't offer any blessings. You just warned. And yet, you were still fed, still heard, still allowed to leave. You close your eyes, letting the hum of insects and the trickle of water lull you halfway back to sleep. But then, something rustles behind you. You jolt, blinking. A small boy stands there holding a clay jar. He stares at you like you've dropped from the moon. "Are you the fish man?" he asks. You sit up. "What?" He squints. "My sister says a man came from the sea, that he talked to the king and made the sky cry." You blink, slowly. Well, that's one version. You nod, just barely. "Maybe." He thinks on this, then shrugs and dips his jar into the spring. "Fishman's taller in my imagination," he says casually, then wanders off. You stare after him, mouth slightly open. A chuckle bubbles up. "Fishman," you mutter to yourself. "Great, that'll look good on a scroll." Still, there's something tender about it. You, infamous not for your piety or wisdom, but for being barfed onto a beach and grudgingly obeying a divine assignment. It fits. Some commentators wonder if your story was written down as a kind of parable, less about fish and more about heart, less judgment, more mirror. A prophet who runs, a God who chases, a city that listens, a vine that teaches. You don't know. You just know it all happened. The sun is higher now. You stand, brush the grass from your robes, and turn south. You pass fig trees and olive groves. The smell of smoke curls from a village hearth. A woman balances a basket of dates on her head and sings softly to her baby swaddled against her side. You wave. She smiles, just a flicker, and you keep walking. There's no sermon in your heart, no grand declarations, just a quiet kind of knowing, the kind that doesn't need words, the kind that sits inside you like a fire banked low, glowing, not blazing. You think about writing it all down, but the words don't come easily. Not yet. Maybe someday. Maybe not. A gust of wind kicks up dust along the road. It whirls around your ankles like a playful dog, then rushes off across the hills. You follow it, just for fun. The prophet, the fish man, the one who ran, still running. But this time, not from something, toward something, and that feels better, much better. You walk until the sun hangs like a bronze shield overhead, and the road grows soft beneath your sandals. Dust cakes your feet, your lips taste like salt, and your stomach growls a gentle protest. No more seaweed. That's the one vow you've made. At last, you come to a cluster of palm trees, bent like old men sharing a joke. A few goats are tied nearby, lazily chewing leaves. A thin ribbon of smoke curls from a clay oven behind a low stone wall. You peer over it. A woman kneads dough, her sleeves rolled past her elbows, hair tied back with a strip of faded blue linen. She hums, not a song you know, but one that sounds like home anyway. Something about the rhythm of the dough, maybe. You clear your throat. She glances up, then waves you over with flowery hands. No questions, no judgment, just a wave. You step inside the courtyard, and she passes you a fresh hunk of bread, warm and crisp, still steaming at the edges. You try not to inhale it in one bite. The taste is pure miracle. "Fish man?" she asks, raising an eyebrow. You pause, mid-chew. "Word travels fast." She laughs and hands you a fig. The day passes like that, quiet, kind. A neighbor wanders in with a water jar. An old man sits and starts shelling lentils. A goat escapes and someone chases it, shrieking and laughing. You sit beneath the shade, full and sun-drowsy, the breeze threading through the trees like music. Quirky cultural fact: in ancient Assyrian society, community courtyards like this were common gathering places, shared kitchens, shared chores, shared gossip. News spread over bread and figs more than through scribes and scrolls. If you wanted to know what had happened in Nineveh, this was where you came. They don't ask you to explain the storm, or the king's strange fast, or the whispers of a giant fish. They just seem glad you're here. You help stack a few clay bowls, sweep a patch of courtyard, untangle some rope for the goats. It's not glamorous, but it's oddly grounding. And as the sun lowers itself into the horizon, the woman hands you a folded blanket and points toward a rooftop ladder. The roof is flat and cool. Someone's been up here already. There's a woven mat, a clay cup with water, and a sleepy cat curled on the edge like it owns the sky. You lie down beside it. The stars blink on one by one, and you wonder, is this the end? Not the dramatic kind. You've had enough drama, thanks. Just a closing of the chapter, a soft landing after a sharp fall. Scholarly curiosity. Some commentators speculate that the book of Jonah ends abruptly to invite the listener to finish the journey in their own heart. No moral wrapped in a bow. Just a question, like a door left open at night. What would you do if given a second chance? You trace constellations with your finger. The fish is up there somewhere. Leviathan, maybe? Or just a big splash of stars. You smile. Not because it's funny, but because somehow it is. You, called to deliver a message. You who tried to hide in the folds of a boat. You, whose sermon lasted less than a minute but still changed a city. You, who got puked out and propped up by grace. It's almost too strange to believe. But the cat believes. It purrs without hesitation. The stars believe. They keep showing up. Every night, no matter who's looking. And the city below, whether they know your name or not, they believe something happened. Something enough to slow them down. To listen. To change. You sigh. The rooftops are silver in the moonlight. The air is sweet with the scent of baked grain and old stone. A breeze whispers across your face. You pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders. Your eyes grow heavy. And as sleep pulls you under, you don't think about running anymore. You don't think about fish guts or storm winds or thunderous god voices calling from the sky. You just rest. Here, among figs and laughter, goats and rooftops. Here, where the story doesn't need to be retold tonight. It just needs to be lived. And perhaps that's enough. You awaken before dawn, the sky still folded in deep navy. The world is quiet except for the distant bleating of goats and the soft cooing of morning doves perched atop nearby rooftops. The breeze carries a faint scent of baking bread from the courtyard below. Stretching, you notice the cool stone beneath your fingers, the faint shimmer of dew on the woven mat. The city slowly stirs. Footsteps echo faintly on cobblestones, and lanterns flicker like fireflies waking from sleep. You sit up, pulling the blanket around your shoulders once more, and gaze out across the rooftops. The sun has not yet dared to peek over the horizon, but you can feel the promise of its warmth. This moment, you realize, is a kind of peace you never expected. The world didn't end with the storm or the big fish's belly. Instead, it softens into dawn, gentle and full of possibility. You think back to the royal sandals, symbols of authority and grace that belonged to Esther, a queen whose quiet bravery changed the course of history without raising her voice above a whisper. Like her, you find strength in stillness, in patience, in the small acts that ripple outward. You take a deep breath and imagine yourself slipping those sandals on, light, worn, carrying stories of long walks through palace halls and shadowed gardens. The leather is cracked but sturdy, the soles shaped perfectly to fit a foot like yours. Stepping into those sandals, you feel a little steadier. A servant arrives with a wooden bucket of water and a linen cloth, and you wash your hands carefully. You feel the chill of the water, crisp and clear as the morning air. Quirky cultural fact: in ancient Persia, where Esther's story unfolds, the art of sandal making was highly respected. Each pair was custom crafted and often carried symbolic meanings about the wearer's status and role in society. You wrap your fingers around the bucket's handle, its rough wood comforting in your grasp, and listen to the city waking up below. Birds flutter and call, merchants begin to set out their wares, and somewhere a blacksmith's hammer clinks steady rhythms against iron. Some scholars wonder if the sandals represent not just royalty, but also the journey of faith. How stepping forward in courage means walking paths unknown, sometimes barefoot, sometimes protected. You smile to yourself. Your journey has been anything but straightforward. From the crashing waves to the silent rooftop, from fear to faith, you've traveled through storms of the heart and the sea. But now, here in this quiet dawn, the road ahead feels softer. You stand and stretch, feeling the light in your bones, ready to face whatever comes next. And just as Esther's quiet bravery changed a kingdom without shouting, you understand that sometimes the most powerful stories are those whispered gently in the early morning light. The city hums beneath you, alive and waiting, and you step down from the rooftop, the worn sandals cushioning your feet, your heart light. The sun has climbed higher now, casting a warm golden glow over the bustling streets below. You walk slowly through the marketplace, feeling the rhythm of life pulsing softly all around you, the gentle clink of coins exchanged, the low murmur of conversation, the soft rustling of cloth from merchants' stalls. The scent of fresh figs and honey mingles with the earthy aroma of clay pottery, grounding you firmly in this ancient world. Your feet, now comfortably cradled in those royal sandals, tread lightly over uneven stones worn smooth by countless footsteps before yours. You pause at a stall where an elderly woman carefully arranges woven baskets filled with fragrant herbs and dried flowers. Her hands move with the steady grace of years spent tending gardens and hearths, small, peaceful acts that shape the texture of daily life. A nearby child chases a wooden hoop, laughter bubbling up like a clear stream, reminding you that courage is sometimes found in simple joys. You smile, feeling a quiet warmth settle deep within, a gentle echo of the bravery Esther showed, a bravery that didn't roar but shone steadily, like a candle in a dark room. You think about the palace walls, the whispers in the corridors, and the moment Esther chose to step forward, risking everything with a calm heart. It wasn't the flash of swords or loud proclamations that changed the story, but her patient strength and quiet resolve. A curious fact drifts to mind. Ancient Persian courts often used sandals as a sign of hospitality. Removing one's sandals was a gesture of peace and trust. In this way, Esther's sandals carry more than status. They symbolize a welcome, a bridge between worlds. Some scholars ponder whether the sandals also hint at a spiritual journey, walking humbly yet purposefully along a path laid out by faith and hope. It's a reminder that bravery doesn't always demand loud declarations. Sometimes it's found in the steady steps we take every day. As you continue your stroll, the city's rhythm slows to match the peaceful beat of your heart. The warm sunlight bathes everything in a soft glow, and you feel as if time itself has gently slowed, inviting you to rest. So now, take a deep breath. Let your thoughts drift like leaves on a quiet stream. The story of Esther and her royal sandals is not just ancient history. It's a gentle whisper that bravery, kindness, and quiet strength can shine in the softest moments. You pause, closing your eyes for just a moment, feeling the world's calm embrace. And as you do, The scene fades slowly into a gentle twilight, stars beginning to twinkle like the countless hopes tucked quietly in your heart. The day softens now, and you feel the calm settling deeper, like a warm blanket wrapped around your shoulders. The stories you've heard, the footsteps you've imagined, they all lead to this gentle stillness. Your breath slows, each inhale and exhale a quiet rhythm that lulls your mind to rest. Imagine the sky above, a vast tapestry of indigo and silver, the stars blinking slowly as if nodding off alongside you. The world is peaceful here, free from worry and noise, a place where courage whispers softly instead of shouting. Your body feels heavier, lighter, all at once, like drifting on a gentle sea, rocked by the slow, steady waves of a lullaby sung by time itself. Let your thoughts drift, like the last leaves of autumn, floating softly to earth. There is nothing you need to hold on to now, only this moment of calm and quiet. The stories of old, the footsteps on ancient stone, the royal sandals worn by a brave heart, they all blend into the soothing hush that wraps around you like a favorite song. And as you sink deeper into this peaceful night, know that you are safe, you are steady, and you are enough. Good night, dear friend. May your dreams be soft and kind, carried on the wings of gentle stars.